Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a video and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Today, I'm privileged to welcome a friend and one of the very savvy investors we have in our country in startups, Denny Kurien. Denny, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you. Denny is the president and CEO of the Keiretsu Forum, and he handles Delhi, NCR, and Bangalore. He was earlier with Landmark Shops India Private Limited, and he's also worked as a journalist with Dow Jones and Business Standards. So, Denny, tell me, from journalism to retail to investing, what would you say are three key milestones in your life or your career?
Well, it's been quite a bit of switch, as you can see, from journalism to entrepreneurship and investing. And I think the one theme that is linking all of that together is this interest in doing something crazy, at least when you're doing it. I've clearly taken some crazy decisions in my life, and I think they've all played out very well for me. And what that reminds me is a quote which I just have in front of me on my table, one of those calendars I got this year. The old style paper calendars which you keep flipping the dates. And there is this very interesting quote which I came across. This is from Picasso, the painter. He says, I'm always doing something which I can't do so that I get a chance to learn that. And I think that's what has taken me through this journey. And I'll just maybe give you one or two instances. When I got out of college in the early 90s, just the end of 1990, I took the train to Delhi to find a job. I mean, those days, obviously, you couldn't even afford a flight. And what I had done in college was training in journalism. So obviously, that was the job we were looking for. And I picked up a job with Financial Express, which was part of the Indian Express group. Yeah. But and obviously, therefore, it was in business writing. And a lot of my friends thought I was crazy to go into business writing because that was a very fringe part of journalism those days. If you had to be a real journalist, successful in life, you had to be covering general things, politics and many other things. True. But as luck would have it, in 1991, the liberalization started. Manmohan Singh opened up the economy. And suddenly there was this the surge in interest for business news, from just having 3 business dailies at that time, which was Financial Express, Economic Times, actually only 2, I think. Business Standard, even Business Standard happened a little later, and that was a Calcutta-based paper. So suddenly, the existing papers started adding more pages for business news, and then Business Standard came to Delhi to become a national daily from being a Calcutta-based regional daily. The Observer started. A lot of those papers started, and how it helped the few of us who had got into this just prior to this was that there was such a shortage of business journalists with any experience. Our growth was much faster. When it would have taken 10 years to get somewhere in journalism, you could do that in 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, I agree.
And then sometime in around 2000, I wanted to move out of Delhi. I had spent about 10 years by then in Delhi between Financial Express, then Business Standard, and later I joined Dow Jones, which runs the Wall Street Journal. But even at that time, a lot of people were saying, why are you joining an unknown organization? Because Dow Jones, of course, the index was known, but beyond that, it was barely known in India. Yeah. And I remember going around telling people that I was actually joining AP Dow Jones because the Associated Press was a little bit more known, and there was a joint venture between Dow Jones and AP, which was technically the entity that hired me. But I would say that was where I was working because at least people knew that. Okay. So from getting into business journalism at a time when it was fashionable to then getting into.
I'm going to have to interrupt you a little bit because I have a lot of questions for you on Keiretsu. So
sure.
So can I?
So that's how it started. Yeah, and I'll come back to it as and when you have questions.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I want to talk about Keiretsu. I mean, it is an amazing body, and I've attended some of your sessions. Tell me about the venture and what do you do?
So Keiretsu Forum is an international angel investor network. It started in the Bay Area in the US in 2000, so it's been around now for 21 years. We've been consistently the number one worldwide in terms of the number of deals funded by our investors. It is a platform which brings together investors. These are early investors. It's not a fund, so we don't take in the money. What we do is bring companies together, provide a platform and a process to look at these companies and assess them. And then let the individuals take their own decisions on whether or not they want to invest into each company. But even post-investment, it brings together a very good community of accomplished people who can not only put some money into a company, but also support them throughout the journey of growth and eventually the exit.
Okay.
And I think that is what makes this interesting for a lot of people who are our members, because these are not people who need to earn a little bit more money so they can have a comfortable life. These are people who've already done it in life.
Correct. So, when a startup entrepreneur reaches out to you to, through you, access these potential angel investors, what do you look for in a business plan?
There are a number of things. It's not only the business plan. I think, the most important thing we look at is the founder himself or herself. The plan is a necessary condition, but I don't think it's a sufficient condition.
Okay.
And the one feedback I've consistently got from our members and the one learning that I've had over the last 5 years running this is that you are always investing in people. You're never investing in an idea or a market or a company. It's always about the people. So that's number one. The founder or the founding team has to have that chemistry with our members. And it's not only about the best founder, it's also about a founder who you can work with. Because at the end of the day, entrepreneurship is a long journey.
Correct.
And it's a tough journey too. You need people who can navigate that and also who can take help in doing that. Okay. That's one key thing. The other thing we look at is, despite all this euphoria about valuations and exits, we are still looking at companies that are very, very conscious of and very, very focused on unit economics.
Okay.
Return on investment is a big factor in that. And if you have the time, I just want to take one or two examples of how we look at it.
Yeah.
I remember watching an interview with Mukesh Ambani on one of the channels. I don't remember where, but if you search on YouTube, I'm sure you will find. And I remember him mentioning an instance as a learning from his father, Dhirubhai Ambani, who created this whole juggernaut. And he was saying, my father told me that even if you are helping somebody, giving money for free, you should give it like this. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
So that people who are taking it like this are also blessing you. They're not taking it, right? So you should give it like this. So they take it and they're blessing you. I thought that you can't think of a more fanatic way of being focused on return on investment. Right? I mean, so an entrepreneur is someone who at every point, even if you're giving away something for free, are still conscious of the return on investment.
Amazing.
And I think people who don't lose sight of that will always become successful entrepreneurs, and those are the ones we are looking for.
Fantastic. So, as you talk to so many startup entrepreneurs, you invest in so many startup entrepreneurs, you decide on many startup entrepreneurs who are not eligible to get your investments. What are some of the key challenges you have faced with startup entrepreneurs?
So I want to, put a caveat even before I answer this, and want to say that our selecting or investing in a company or not doing that is never the last word.
I agree.
It doesn't mean anything. There are very good companies we didn't see the right way, and we
Absolutely.
we passed up, and they've gone on to do very well.
So this is no reflection at all on the startup. No reflection.
There are also companies we've invested and haven't done well, but but at the same time, it's one common theme that when you look at companies, one of the reasons why they fail to connect with investors and get that money is not always a lack of a good idea, but the lack of that ability to storytell. Because at the end of the day, when you're pitching to an investor, it's still storytelling. You need to have a story with which in 10 minutes or 20 minutes you can grab that attention. And if you manage to do that, then investors are willing to sit with you and understand more about you. If you're not able to do that, and very often what a lot of startups do is try and squeeze in a lot of information. Information doesn't sell, a story sells, right?
Yes.
So you can have all the details and miss the story, or you can just have a story without any of the details and still get the interest.
Very interesting. And once you have decided to make an investment, what is the kind of involvement your angel investors have with the business of the company and the governance of the company?
So there are two aspects to that. One is prior to making investment, and the other is once you make the investment. Even prior to making investments, we involve our members in the due diligence process. And where it helps is, as an organization, even within India, we've now got about 250 or so members, and these are all people who run large companies as CEOs and so on. Many of them have missed out on the entrepreneurial journey. They may have been running a large company, which still wasn't their company, and this is their chance to relive what they've lost in terms of an opportunity. So they come in and participate in the due diligence, and where it helps us is regardless of what company we are looking at, in this 250 or so people, there'll be somebody or the other who's done something in that space, and therefore they are able to take an objective look at the opportunity and take a call on behalf of everyone. Once the investment has happened, we set up small teams of people who've invested in each company, even to the extent of creating a WhatsApp group. So there is continuous communication. It's not a monthly update or a quarterly update. There is continuous communication. And each time a founder is looking for help, not just updating us on the great things that they're doing, but looking for help when they're hitting a wall, they are encouraged to put it in the group or reach out to our people. And you never know, there will always be someone in the group who can come up with an idea which the founder hasn't thought of.
Very interesting.
In addition to that, many of our members are able to make connections with potential customers, to new technologies, to new territories, so on and so forth. So I think there is a very close interaction even post-investment, and that is not altruistic. I would say that is purely out of vested interest, because investing is only the beginning of the journey. Unless a company does well and gives us an exit, even we don't make money. And therefore it comes purely out of vested interest. But sometimes things done out of vested interest will have greater effect and impact.
Okay. So I've got one more question for Keiretsu before I move to the next segment. For an organization that is global, that is supporting so many startups and working with so many angel investors, what are some of the core values of your business?
While on the one hand we are working with companies to support them and grow them, we also feel that this is a business, and therefore this is seen as a business. Now, having said that, this is a network of people, because it's a people that makes what we are. And one key aspect of the forum globally, and what I look for individually when I look at admitting people, is that that realization and willingness to learn. Because at the end of the day, everyone who comes in as a member is an accomplished individual.
Correct.
But at the same time, there are some people who still sees the opportunity to learn together as a community, and anyone who thinks that there is still something to take away from the community while they all immensely contribute. I think that's one glue that binds us all together, the ability to learn together and grow together as a community.
Fantastic. So I've got a few questions for you as with regard to startups and entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
My first question, and this has often been asked to me by many people, should a startup entrepreneur go solo or should they have a co-founder?
There's no standard answer to this.
Correct.
But the conventional wisdom seems to be that if you have a co-founder or if you have a couple of people in the team, that's a much better construct than if you were going solo, because as many of them realize as they get into it, the entrepreneurship journey is not easy.
It's lonely.
It's very lonely, and when you are through that, there are so many occasions when you feel you are going against the wall, and you need at least a person to brainstorm with. To an extent, angel investors and the others can fill in that void. But still, given the fact that when you start up, you are essentially telling yourself that from today onwards, you are everything. You're from the peon to the driver to the CEO. You're going to be doing everything, at least for some time, until you become a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And that journey, I think, will become much easier if you were to do it with a partner, co-founder.
Wonderful. And as you look back at so many startup entrepreneurs who have, passed through your hands, if I can use that phrase, what, in your opinion, are some of the basic mistakes a lot of startup entrepreneurs make?
I wouldn't call them mistakes. So obviously, there are challenges, and when a challenge is faced, it's a matter of how you address that, right? If you see a challenge as an opportunity, even if you don't get it right the first time, you will still come back and do it well.
Correct.
I would say the ability to stay grounded is the most important thing, and sometimes this go missing, especially when you see some early successes. And we know that early successes mean only so much in the startup world because it's still a long journey. And very often startup founders mistake fundraising for success.
Right.
Fundraising is not success in itself, it's only a means to a success.
Very interesting.
So if you, for example, raise some money and got a decent valuation, it's easy to feel and think that you've arrived. But so long as you keep in mind that you've just begun the journey, I think it can help.
Okay.
But I wouldn't call any of these mistakes, because I think these are all learnings.
Yeah.
And in terms of experiences and learnings, you can either go through that as a tourist, just seeing that and moving on, or you can go through them as a student, learning from each one of them.
Okay.
It depends on how you go through that.
I agree. And one more question on startups before I move to some questions for you personally. One of the challenges that I have always heard from a lot of startups is that my investor wants me to scale up pan-India. And I've often asked them, I said, we are such a big country. If you were to just look at the national capital region, it's 23 million people. Right? Why? At what stage, in your opinion, should a startup start to scale up?
I would say, first of all, that statement is a generalization. You can't say all investors are the same.
No, so I'm not saying at all Keiretsu is doing this.
Not even Keiretsu, but even within Keiretsu, it can be case to case. And I'll give you an example. I started off with the Chennai chapter, then I moved to Bangalore, and now I also run Delhi. In Chennai, one of the things we've seen is that when a company comes and says this is what we want to do and we want to go pan-India or maybe even beyond India, they would typically tell you, and this is very Chennai centric. They would say first you prove it in your backyard.
Okay.
And I remember one particular company which came and said they wanted to do something in all of Tamil Nadu, and they said just go back to Coimbatore, which is where you're from. Prove it there. We'll give you some money. Prove it there, and then come back.
Okay.
However, later when I came to start the chapter in Bangalore, and sometimes, companies which originally pitch in Chennai and get this feedback and then come and pitch to Bangalore, giving a very localized picture, and people will say you're thinking too small. You need to think big. So it's very, very difficult to say which is the right way or who will say what. I suppose each investor will have a different way of looking at it, and it's also, I think, very specific to the company and the idea.
Okay.
There are some ideas which need to be executed very well locally even before you look beyond that. There are other ideas where you need to have a global vision to get that kind of interest and valuations you're looking for.
Very interesting. So I've now time for 2, maybe 3 questions for you.
Yes.
And these are some questions for you personally. So Denny, as you look back at life, successful career in journalism, something in retail, last so many years as a successful investor, what does success mean to Denny?
That's a tough question. I think
That's why I'm asking it.
Whatever you describe as success from has come, I think, from a certain element of luck. Partly it may have, come from the decisions I made, but I would still put it as luck. And what I mean is when I started off as a journalist, I did talk a little bit about going into business journalism at that time. So as a very young journalist, just out of college, I had the opportunity, just because I was a journalist, to have access to some of the senior people in the industry, because as a journalist, you get access to the CEO. Nobody else is supposed to speak to the press. So that was great learning at that time, in my early days, seeing people who are successful and learning from them. But that changes over time. I mean, as I spent a little bit more time in journalism and slowly moved into some management positions, it became all about managing people with you in your team. And then you start seeing, the larger world, which is also when I decided to come back to India and get into a few other things, including entrepreneurship, because one of the thinking was if you think you're good at telling others what they're doing right or wrong through writing, at some point you need to try it yourself and prove that you can do it too. That was one. Number 2, especially when you reach this stage in life, I think the next big learning is coming from these youngsters who are looking at the world in a completely different way, the entrepreneurs, the innovators. So I've again been very, very fortunate and lucky to be in this space where I get to see a lot of enterprising, successful young innovators and work with them alongside our members who are again very, very successful people in their life. So I think, like they say back home in Kerala, when you are in the company of such accomplished people, some of that I think will rub in on you as well. So I've been very, very fortunate.
You've been very, very modest, but I guess that's how you are. And my last question to you, and so this is for the thousands of people who will listen to what you are saying. What would your advice be to a young entrepreneur who's starting off on their journey as an entrepreneur?
I think today's young people, the entrepreneurs, they don't need any advice, but the one experience, if I can share, is it's not going to be easy, but if you go through that and come out of it still alive, you will never want to do anything else. It's so worthwhile. So today, if you ask me, will you want to take up another job, no matter what the salary is, what the terms are, I'll never do that, because this is so much more fulfilling, rewarding, enjoyable. And I think there is that opportunity for people today. I mean, unlike, I think, during the times when we grew up, it was still possible, but it wasn't so widely available. Whereas today, there are so many opportunities for young people to do things on their own. But they need to get into that thinking it's not going to be easy. And of course, they need to keep in mind that if it was so easy, everyone else also would have been an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
So entrepreneurship is not for everyone, but for someone who can pull it off, don't even think of anything else.
Terrific.
And there's no alternative.
Terrific.
Absolutely.
So, Denny, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. I wish you and Keiretsu Forum lots of success.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's been an honor to be on your platform and even get some brand recognition for Keiretsu, which is the reason why I thought I'll put that,
Thank you.
that brand behind me.
Absolutely. And you should.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.